First of all, let me apologise for probably a lot of ramblings and incoherence on this video. But I kind of look at it on less like a YouTube video and more like a therapy session for myself. I'd like to start talking about the United Kingdom protest march. Now, that might be the wrong name for it. I quite frankly, I don't give a shit if it's wrong. Just deal with it. The alleged 3 million, as it was put forward by Tommy Robinson, appears to be an extremely exaggerated number. I've seen people do the maths on the number of people that could fit in these streets and areas, and 150,000 people were at the protest. It was around about that figure. It wasn't millions that turned up to march. Quite frankly, I don't even... It's something that I don't really recognise in my country, and it's something that I don't think has really been seen since the late 70s or the early 80s, early 70s with the likes of the National Front. Now, in the 1970s, there were what was called fringe groups that were very annoyed about the rising numbers of which were quite marginally small numbers at the time, but these right-wing thuggish organisations existed back then, and they were hell-bent on making the environment and the living standards of ethnic minorities pretty hostile. There was things like swastikas were painted on and daubed on this, like an F, and like racist graffiti was put in certain parts of London and Manchester, and it was kind of like a sort of fringe thing. It's kind of an element in society of a fringe that's never really gone away. Now, I'm not saying that the UK should have an open border policy. That is not what I'm suggesting, and it's not what I would literally support. I mean, if you had anybody coming here that wanted to come here, could get in past the borders, it wouldn't be a particularly great situation anyway. But what I really want to point out in this video is that the Reform UK Party don't really have a solid vision. All they're doing is putting immigration at the forefront of the manifesto, and they're not really putting anything in place that could be tangible. And look, I'm going to make a prediction here. One, that Reform will probably get elected in the 2029 election. That is if they don't fracture and split, which is what right-wing groups tend to do, because there's actually different fractions of them. There's the more moderate ones, and then from what I saw, some of the speeches were pretty out there. And what it is really, what Reform UK really is it's a shit carbon copy of MAGA. That's all it is. It's nothing more and it's nothing less. And if you actually look at the asylum seeker numbers, they've got big, or they've gotten bigger, should I say. But they're not really anything that the UK hasn't seen in similar numbers in previous years. Oh, before you go typing in the comment section saying, you're wrong, it's the highest number we've ever seen. Well, it probably is the highest number we've ever seen, but I'm saying it's comparable to previous years gone by. And what I'm saying is I'm seeing a fascistic whipping up. The Reform UK Party are really stirring the shit pot of making people afraid of asylum seekers. And you look at the statistics, and let me remind you that an overwhelming 80% of the people that do commit sexual assault in this country and grape, I don't know whether the first is going to get me demonetized this video or not. Who gives a shit? Vast majority of SA and grapes carried out in this country are done by UK British citizens, most of whom are actually white. And let me also remind you that these numbers are being hyped up. I mean, the percentage of immigration for asylum seekers across total migration is floating somewhere at the moment between 5 and 9% of all migration. So that's asylum seekers make up a small number of the total migration into the country. Most of the migrants are coming over on skilled work visas. Like a lot of them are coming over on student visas. Some of them are coming over to join partners, etc., which is perfectly legal and legitimate. In fact, it's part of the EHCR rules or legal legislation is a right to life, which is why the UK spouse visa and partner visa routes exist. But do you really honestly think that if all the asylum seekers, and by the way, this is one of the arguments on the right that really, really boils my piss, is this argument. Well, why did they come across to France? Why did they just stop at France? Why did they all have to come over the channel and come to France? Well, you know what? People that leave Syria, Iraq and Afghanistan and these places, most of them do actually stop in these countries along the way. It's only a small percentage of people that even get to France. Only a small percentage of those numbers actually even try and make it across the country. And let me mention as well something that the right never mention is, and you can't deny this fact, is that the UK and the US have systematically fucked around bombing and detaining people and wiping out regimes in the Middle East for the past 25 years. So of course those people do see a link, and some of them, I've seen them speaking, feel like the UK kind of owes them a bit of funding, or at least some amendments in terms of the fact that they've absolutely completely destroyed their countries and bombed up the shit out of them. And lest we not forget that this was all the USA's plan to get control, strategic military control in the country, and it was to get control of the flow of oil as well. Interesting how you don't see the UK and the US going into countries in Africa that have dictatorial regimes and overthrowing them, isn't it? It's interesting how you don't see the UK and the US really... Well, I guess they kind of did it in countries like South Sudan, but they haven't meddled anywhere near as much as the fuckery poker that they've done in the aforementioned countries. And that does have to come into play when you talk about why people are actually leaving the country. You never hear the right mention that, do you? They never fucking talk about that. And so it's clear to me, and maybe it's not clear to you if you're a staunch reform supporter who systematically over the past few years, as you probably might have done with Brexit, you've radicalised yourself by swiping through TikTok or YouTube shorts thinking, yeah, send those bastards home. How dare they come over here and steal our women and our jobs and essay and grape or whatever. But don't forget that it's only a small, tiny minority of these people that are actually committing those crimes. It's very small. And like I said, the vast majority of people that are committing essay and grape crimes in this country, they are white British citizens. And if you know what, if you don't believe me about the stats about pedos and things, go and look it up online. You go and look and have a look at the Office of National Statistics and the police crime figures. And you come down to me on the bottom of the comments in this video and tell me that I'm wrong. And if you do, you know what? You haven't read them properly. There are more pressing issues in this country than immigration. And the right Reform Party are making you believe that there aren't. And what pisses me off more is that the Labour Party, and let's not even bother talking about the Conservative Party, because effectively they're kind of dead in the water at the moment. And I say at the moment because A week is a long time in politics, and 4 years is even much longer than that. You never know. People said in 1997, after the Labour Party got elected, the Conservative Party will never be in power again. Look at the great sweeping changes that Labour are bringing about. How can they ever get elected again? And 13 years later, they were elected in a coalition government and subsequently elected several times after that. But what I feel is happening here is that it's a cultural and social change where people are getting misinformation through the likes of X, through the likes of Facebook. And these are really, really powerful algorithms. Once you stick on something that you think, there might be something in that, and you keep scrolling, you keep swiping and doing that radicalization of yourself, and it's going to feed you the same content over and over again, even more extreme content. And you've got all these people on the periphery of this sort of almost radical right movement, people that are going up to asylum seekers' hotels, filming them, they're harassing them. All these grifters on the right that are causing, the sort of orbiting in the satellite of reform, and Tommy Robinson's message about how every single Muslim person is going to take over the country eventually and essay and grape everybody to death, especially the white population. Well, like I said, let me assure you that the white population is busy essaying and graping itself to death anyway. They'll do that for you with or without Muslim immigration. And yes, I'm not saying that the grooming gangs weren't a problem, but I look at it, I sort of flip it around and look at it like this in a sense. Now, what the failure of the Greater Manchester Police and the Hyde Police, Yorkshire Police, and other police forces across the country, what that was, effectively, it was a failing to the working classes. Yes, I'm going to say working classes. I don't care. Get over it. But that's what it was. Do you think that if a middle-class family had reported these things to the police, do you think that if a father had gone in there with a suit and a tie and reported his gone in there with his daughter from Surrey or Sussex and sat down well spoken and said, look, this has happened to my... Do you think the police would have turned a blind eye? No, it was a systematic failure institutionally which should have clamped that down. The institutions are the things that the organisations that bear the brunt and responsibility for this. And let me tell you that if Reform do get elected, their fiscal policies are dog shit. Look, I did a video on this. I'm not going to go through it all again. But suffice to say that things like not paying interest on quantitative easing, having a massive increase in the budget of immigration, and raising the threshold to £20,000 for tax and national insurance. That is an absolute fucking economic disaster waiting to happen. You go and have a look at that. You do the maths and add it all up. There's a massive 100 billion deficit in that fiscal plan. It is dog shit. It's not even written on the back of a napkin. It's written on the back of a shat-on used piece of toilet paper. It's awful. The only thing that Farage and Tice are interested in, really, when it boils down to it, that what they want to do is they want to deregulate the banks. That's what they want. They want to turn the UK into a big fuck-off tax haven for the rich and the elites. They don't give a flying fuck about the working class. Do you really honestly think that Nigel Farage has really got your interest at heart, the working class, middle class, whatever? You really think that he has the poorest people's interests at heart in this country? Superficially, he might appear to, with the stirring up of the hatred of immigrants. By the way, if you think that I am on the left, I will admit this. I'll say that when Boris Johnson got elected, I thought it might be, an exciting time. I thought it might be a change in the political curve. I thought that, naively and stupidly thought that Boris Johnson wasn't a lying piece of crap that wouldn't exploit the system and run away at the first sign of emergency that the country had in COVID. But if Reform do get elected, they're going to make Liz Truss look like Warren fucking Buffett. That's how bad it's going to be. We're going to have not a recession. We're going to have a depression. And don't say I didn't warn you. Not that anyone's going to watch this video. I've literally only got like 50. I think I've got less than 50 subscribers on this channel. But looking at the speeches on Saturday, there were some real oddballs. There were people getting up there saying that Christianity should be the only religion in the UK. Lest we forget that the Church of England actually, in a way, de facto is sort of the mandated religion in the United Kingdom. Obviously, the king is head of the church, and for many years, praying was compulsory in schools. But making one religion a mandated religion in that country is balls. It's insane. It's what theocratic regimes do. And if you can maybe open your brain and your mind for a second, just realise that it's a sweeping infection of the MAGA movement in the United States. That's all it is. A movement which, in the United States, purports to have freedom of speech. That great freedom of speech where when you arrive at the border as a tourist, you get your phone taken off by the TSA and they swipe for it to see if there's any derogatory comments about the president and don't let you in. How the fuck is that exactly freedom of speech? How is jailing judges for pulling up Donald Trump on the breaking of the defying of the American Constitution by deporting US citizens, or actually deporting people without legal due process in the country, which is a violation of the Constitution? Look, I'm not supporting Labour, by the way. Let me just make it very clear. And I think Keir Starmer is a terrible Prime Minister. He's awful. When he tries to speak about something, you can barely understand what he's saying. He sounds like a badly programmed AI robot. It's really, really terrible. He's got zero charisma. One-on-one, when he's interviewed, clearly he's had media training and so on and so forth. I think the problem is with him being a human rights lawyer that he's been trained to speak in legalese, and that's sort of kind of seeped into his politics speak effectively, and he does. It's not good. It's not good. Like, you ask the Prime Minister a question. I know all politicians are by default evasive fucks. They clearly are, and I think that's one of the things about Reform. I think that's where Farage actually has some edge over that, is that on the face of it, I want to say on the face of it, he does seem to be straight talking, but the people that will take over in Reform, they do not have experience of running a country. And although they may get advised by the civil service, I've got a feeling that they're going to just push through sweeping reforms without even thinking about the consequences of them. And yes, they have a policy of scrapping like carbon zero policies. But even something like that will cause friction with the European Union. They may not want to trade us freely. Not that they trade very particularly frictionlessly with us anyway after Brexit. But if we pull out of the EHRC, that will cause friction, even more friction with Europe. And let me remind you again that even if you think that Brexit is still a fantastic idea, think tanks and economists have worked out basically that it's shaved off when you even taking into account things like COVID, and the supply of oil and war in Ukraine and the increase in fuel prices and things like that, which adds to the cost of fuel. Even taking that into account, Brexit has shaved billions of pounds off the economy. It's made the GDP drop by around about 4% in total. People are feeling the pinch. European economies bounce back way quicker. When you compare that on a scale, European economies bounce back way quicker than they did in the UK after COVID hit. But really think there needs to be some kind of strong pushback from the left on this. I mean, look, one of the other problems is he who shouts the loudest makes the most headlines. And I think that's true in legacy media. And Nigel Farage is getting lots of coverage on programmes like Question Time. And that sort of feeds into the hysteria of everything. Like, the more airtime he gets, the more hysteria he gets to pump in to these networks, and the more hysteria he can manage to drip feed through to TikTok and Facebook. The UK's expenditure on asylum seeker immigration is only £4.7 billion, and contrast that with wastage on the NHS. And it's really not. It's not very much. It's not a massive amount of money, which would do much difference if he got it back into the economy anyway. And remember that Nigel Farage He bent the country over and fucked it with Brexit for the first time. I can't wait to see. Tongue in cheek there, but I can't wait to see. That's not a sexual innuendo. But, I can wait to see what would happen if he took over and those fiscal policies were implemented and tanked the country even more than it even was. Look, I don't know what the economic solution is to the UK's financial woes. It's been in a boom and bust cycle for fucking years, decades and decades and decades. It seems to be a part of the capitalist system you can't really avoid. Boom and bust cycle happens every few years, and it's just part of the integration. You got to make hay whilst the sun shines. Effectively, you got to save through the good times and expect the bad times to happen. But all this blaming of the situation of the country on asylum seekers is completely arse about face. It's completely backwards. Really is. It's bad groupthink. It's shitty rule by the mob. And you know what? If you're a flag shagging, reform banging supporter, then go ahead. Go ahead. You vote for them in the next general election, and you see what happens. You come back to this video if you've watched it and you've been really angered by it. And you know what? If you're angered by it, then go ahead and do leave some comments in the section below. I'll be glad to read through those comments, and I'll be glad to do a feedback video on them. And I'll tell you what, I'll be glad to come back here in 5 years or 6 years when the economy is absolutely on its arse, way more than it is now. Look, I know that the GDP debt ratio is off its arse completely. This country is fucked. But if you think that by sweeping all these problems under the carpet and dragging out immigration, if you really think that's a solution, you go ahead. You go ahead and you vote for all these. Look, they won't say it out loud, will they not? They won't say it out loud. But Nigel Farage, right? He is a fucking racist. I'm going to say it out, and I'll tell you why he's a fucking racist. Because he was quoted as saying, when he was on a train, he didn't like the fact that, he said that he was hearing a lot of foreign languages in his own country, and that was making him feel uncomfortable. And this is the thin end of the wedge. If you saw some of those speeches on the on the rally on Saturday. You had Trump going on there saying you had to fight or die. If that's not incitement to violence, I don't know what the fuck is, to be quite honest with you. I'm not saying I'm a strong voice on the left at all. I am unknown. I'm completely unknown. And nobody will probably watch this video. But I just wanted there to be a pushback out there from the left as a warning to what you are going to get. And don't think for one second that a bunch of multimillionaires, tax dodgers and evaders and offshore fucking grifters, i.e. the members of the Reform Party, are going to save the day for the ordinary working people in this country. Then, think again. Just think again.